we call the meeting to order, please? It is 5 o'clock. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Roll call, please.
All right. Aaron?
Here.
Gail?
Here.
Jordan?
Here.
Alderman Kapusta? Absent. Tony? Absent. Camille?
Here.
Robin?
Here.
Barb?
Here.
Tracy?
Here.
All right. Statement of public notice, please.
This meeting was noticed and according to the open meeting law.
All right. Public comment. No one here from the general public this evening, although we do have Alderwoman Eileen Madden sitting in the crowd. Welcome. Happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. So it looks like we have the approval of minutes for the August 21st, 2018 meeting and to place on file the library financial reports. And at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
Move to approve the consent agenda, which includes the approval of the August 21st, 2018 minutes and the library financial reports.
Thank you. Gail, is there a second on that?
I'll second.
Barb, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Looks like that motion passes. Let's see, President's Report. We have a new trustee joining our esteemed body here. Would like to introduce Tracy Blair. All right. So welcome. And for her benefit, why don't we all go around the room briefly, maybe just introduce yourself. Looks like many of us know her already, but we'll make it official. So Erin Robertson, been on the board for a number of years, and I believe this is my second full year maybe as president. So welcome. Happy to have you with us.
Barb Schrader. I just with my campaign. So.
All right.
I just newly joined before you, so I'm a new person.
All right, we're newbies.
All right.
Robin Kyle. Started my third year.
Jordan Young, pretty new as well.
Camille Darko, that started my third year.
I don't even know how many years I've been. Probably about the same. I think you and I came
Yeah.
about the same time with Gail Combo.
I know you were definitely here before me.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Vice President, Head of Strategic Planning. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Brittany Larson, the library director. Thank you so much for serving on the library board.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, let's see. I'm a nurse by profession, but I teach for Marquette University and UWM senior nursing students in clinical in surgery at Children's.
Oh, wow.
So
Yikes, you're busy.
Yeah, and then that's my part-time role, and then my other part-time role to make me full-time is that I am the coordinator of all the nursing instructors that come to Children's. So they could be coming from Alverno or Concordia or UWM, wherever they come from, to do their clinical groups and make sure that they're oriented to the units and comfortable teaching those clinical groups on the floor. So I do that. I'm a mother of 6, so
Wow.
Busy lady.
a little busy. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah, and they're like age 20 to 11, so 2 in college, 2 in high school, and 2 in middle school. And then I'm on the school board now, so
Wow.
I'm pretty excited about
You have a
that.
full plate.
All right.
Yeah.
So welcome.
But
Thanks for
she
joining
knows how
us.
to
Yeah,
handle
good
it.
stuff.
Yeah,
She's good at juggling results.
yes, very organized.
Yeah.
As most nurses
Yeah,
are.
Yeah, the other
As
stuff.
most nurses are, just to get our job done, we have to be organized, so yeah.
All right. Director's report.
All right. So that is packet page 13. All right, so we had a Spice House presentation for adult programming, and that was really exciting. I heard it was very interesting, although I could not attend. On September 22nd, we have our antiques appraiser coming, and It's already filled up to capacity, very exciting. We had lots of people calling from all over, but spectators are definitely welcome. And we're certainly going to book him again next year. There's just a lot of interest in the community.
He's really good. I come
Excellent.
every year. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Very good.
Yeah. My mom has this little puzzle. It's called Changeable Charlie. I'm not sure if anyone was familiar with it, but you could change different parts, like different eyes, noses, mouths, and make the craziest looking person. And I was always convinced it was worth millions as a child because I thought it, was so valuable. I don't know. It was probably mass produced, but I loved it. So maybe someday I'll bring Changeable Charlie. Our crochet group is continuing, and we're starting craft afternoons again. Jolene, the one she did last week was Shrinky Dinks. I'm not sure if anyone's...
Oh, I saw the notice for it.
Yeah, they had a really good time with it. Good attendance, so that was exciting. Oh, let's see here. Summer reading programs come to an end, so I think the children's department can breathe a second of relief. So we were pretty happy about that. Bay Lane Elementary won the traveling trophy. They had the most student population participate. So congratulations to them. St. Paul's was a close second. Let's see. We had... I'm sorry.
Do they do, it says percentile, but I mean, that's also the biggest elementary school. So do they do it even?
That's a good question.
Percent of the population, or is it like that percent of, you know what I'm saying?
Of the
Like,
whole
Right, that's how I
Yeah.
used to do the goals for the coin drop, by how many kids were in that class, not by,
Sure. Yeah, I think it's based on percent of population. I haven't talked to them, so I can't say that for certain, but I presume they were just trying to do it based on what percentage of interest amongst the entire school.
That's the way it seems like by how it's worded, because it says 37% for Baleen and then 32% of their student population for St. Paul's. So it kind of appears that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how else to potentially do that.
I just have a feeling that Baleen Elementary will always win it.
Possibly, although it depends on, I think, advertising, right? Because, let me think
and
here.
I see what you're saying, like if it's the number of students, if you say they had 50 and St. Paul only had 12,
Sure.
but if St. Paul's census is only 100, that's like a quarter, whereas if
Or
it
if they
was
had more, the
1,000
other way.
and
Right.
50
Yeah.
would only be like 0.5%. So really it should be based on the census within that school. Like you would take the number of kids that showed up and divide it by the number of kids that are attending the school, and then you'll get the right percentage, not by how many kids show up.
Right.
Show up to sign up for summer reading.
Yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause
each
you'll
school should be
always
done
be,
separately based on their population.
Because Baylane has 700 kids,
Mm-hmm.
so they're gonna have more kids to be
Yeah, they'll
able to
always be
participate.
ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lakeview only has
Right.
under 300.
And
so-
St. Paul's may only have 100.
So it might be interesting to check and see how they did it and make sure it's based on the.
I'll ask. Let me just make sure.
all the statistics. I mean,
Right.
use them this way, and then perhaps add your method as well to see how.
Well, and
'cause they're
forgive
gonna
me
tell
if
different stories. I think.
right, yeah, because forgive me if I'm not understanding it, but if the percent of the total population wouldn't that be a ratio of participation then, a staggered ratio? So
That's how I'm reading it. So if it's like the population's 500, they're taking the percentage of that at 37%. So somebody else, the percentage, if there's 200, it could be 37% also. That's how I'm reading it. But that doesn't
You
mean
would
that.
have to ask.
But if their
Yeah.
if their only metric is percent of student population, then great. But if you're looking at numbers, so
Right.
for an example, let's say they each had 100 people. In Baylane's circumstance, they'd have 37, and St. Paul's they'd have 32. That's the easy measurement. The problem becomes with Baylane has 700,
Right.
and St. Paul's has 200. Then actually, St. Paul's did better than Baylane. You know,
Right.
when you're just looking at it from that perspective. And also,
Right.
though, the raw numbers are going to be different because you have different
Right.
universes. So I think
Yeah.
there's many ways you can look at those statistics is my ultimate point. Look at them all.
yeah, I'm presuming they did it based on the participation percent based on the total population, but I'll
That
double
could be
check and
too.
make sure.
That's another way of
Um,
looking at it. So any ways you could do it, I'd love to see multiple ways of looking at it.
yeah, I'll definitely check and confirm. But let's see. Had quite a bit of attendance. They gathered about 8,250 for the children's programs, which is up from 7,466 in 2017. So that's really cool. We had a teen after-hours pizza party. We had 198 teens participate in the summer reading program, which I think is really good for teens. And again, we're always continuing to look at new ways to engage the teens, but I was really happy with that number.
Do we know how many adults were signed up for the summer reading?
Ooh,
That seems to be flying off the handle too.
Yeah, that is a really good question. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I do know that it was an increase from last year. I just don't remember by how much. But I'll find out.
Can you talk at all about how the children's area relates, the new children's area relates to this in terms of, I guess, comments, better attendance, or if they even relate in that regard, but can you equate them at all in any way?
I don't think that I can. I haven't had anyone come to me and say, because you redesigned the children's area, now I'm attending. I've heard nothing but positive, not only from the families and the children, but also just from adults who pass by and go, that looks really nice. We really appreciate that you did that. So I've had no complaints, nothing but positive feedback. And this is anecdotal. I can't say this for sure, although I'd love to do a study on it. But it seems like people linger longer.
Okay.
You know, we were really deliberate about creating spaces like that maker space, but that has all those engaging toys that the Women's Club donated, or the Girl Scout activity that was hung on the side wall with the frog and the fish. The wall manipulatives, we're going to put a few more up so that the kids can engage with the different knobs and dials and whatnot. And even the furniture, like you can tell, instead of people picking up the books and leaving, they're sitting down and they're chatting with other parents, which is something we really wanted other parents to engage with each other. Parenting is hard, and the more they can talk with each other. We have all these early literacy brochures that we're going to be putting on a wall. There's going to be a lot of them that cover different topics and that have cross connections to adult books, so that, you know, we can help parents find parenting books, but also connected to topics related to child rearing and literacy. So, you know, it's a place where I think people can linger more than they were before. So that's just based on my observations.
Smart board up yet?
It is. Functioning? No. The smart board is up, the projector is up, the cable just got run today, the Ethernet cable, so that we can connect it to the Wi-Fi. So I'm feeling confident at the end of the week, and definitely by the next board meeting it will be operational. So yeah, that is exciting. Thanks to the Lions Club for that.
Have you considered, and because I haven't looked at the board recently around this, is of putting out pamphlets for community, okay, I work at children's, so obviously I'm going to put children's, but like if they had, like we have these people called child life specialists who help teach with, like, if the kid's going to have any like surgical needs and stuff like that, where they could connect and do, let's say, a tour of the hospital if they were going to have surgery there or something. Just sort of that outreach of connection of like different entities within this community or not, or I don't know.
So far, we've only been connecting back to physical resources we have here, but that's definitely something we can explore is, you know, like online resources or entities that they might be able to connect to for stuff.
I mean, it's not like
that.
they're selling anything or doing anything like that. It's just an informational type thing.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea.
Or even like having the Poison Control Center put Mr. Yuck stickers there or something.
Sure,
that would be helpful or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Nice, thank you. Wonderful. All right. On page 14, which is the end of my report, I have a few dates of note. I've been trying to do that just so that we can all stay sort of ahead on the big things that are coming up. It's helpful for me. I'm hoping it's helpful for you all as well. On October 2nd is the Bridges Trustee Dinner. I think you all have been RSVPing yes or no as you are able. And then Tracy, I do have an invitation for you, which I forgot to give you yesterday, so I'll talk more about it after the meeting. October 13th is the Friends Craft Beer and Wine fundraiser, and that will be at the library after hours. I will be there. I'm very excited. Working,
If
not
you are
enjoying.
interested, there's a sign up. If you're interested, it's all online for volunteers.
Yes.
And if you volunteer, you can go for free. So.
Yeah, thank you, Robin, for pointing that out. October 16th is our next library board meeting. And October 22nd is the City of Muskego public hearing, and that is the public hearing that will occur before the final budget is proposed and voted on.
I think it might, and I should have brought my notes in, I think it might have gotten pushed out a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Because our mayor is going to the White House.
That's right, yes.
Really?
Yeah, she got invited because she's part of
Women
a
mayors.
conference or something like that, yeah.
wow.
That's very exciting.
So we just
Yeah.
can push things out
Yeah.
about a week.
Well, I think that would be a good thing to do, to let it go.
I think
for a
that
Yeah,
while.
probably. Well, then I will update you, just in case anyone's interested in attending the public hearing, whenever that is. I will check on that. 2019 budget update. I presented the library's capital budget request to the Committee of the Whole on September 11th. All the projects were approved, through this first stage, but obviously there has to be a final budget approval. And just so you all know, the one of the capital requests that we had discussed was the seal coating. And I had gotten a bid, and then I decided, I don't know what it was, a gut, something. I'm like, I want to talk to DPW, and I did. And they talked with another company as well, and they said, the parking lot, it would be more advantageous to do some concrete cutting first. They said if you seal coat it, it's not going to last because in some areas there's too much of a dip or a raise where, they said the snowplows would just end up scraping right over it. And it wouldn't be most effective to seal coat until some of those areas were flattened out. And so basically what I did, I had to sort of make a judgment on that, is I still requested the amount of funds that the board approved, but I didn't want to be wasteful of those dollars, so those funds are going to go towards the concrete cutting to sort of level out the driveway first, and then we'll seal coat, as funds and, once that first foundation is set. So then in the month of September and October, the council is going to continue to meet and discuss the operating budget, the salary study, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and the capital requests, and the final vote on October 23rd, unless it gets pushed out a little bit, depending upon things, which it probably will, because of the...
I think it's only like a day or two. It's
Yeah.
not far.
Yeah.
Not far.
So that's sort of the update with the budget. Strategic Planning Committee. The Strategic Planning Committee, we will be meeting in October to discuss initial timelines, because our strategic plan goes from 2017 through 2019, which means in 2019 we're in a strategic planning year, and we have to start gathering data, focus groups, observations, so that we can build our next strategic plan for 2020 through 2022. And then the Personnel Committee. It looked like this happened last year, and so please let me know if you'd like to continue this. But the Personnel Committee met once in October to review the Director Evaluation Form in order to prepare for the evaluation in November, December. So that's with those two committees. I attended the Wisconsin New Library Director Boot Camp, which was amazing. It was fully funded by the DPI, so even more amazing. And I got to meet with other new library directors, and so I was actually the veteran there. You'd be proud of me, because I'd been there a whole 11 months, so I was walking around like, oh yes, I've had that happen to me already. Some people were like 3 days on the job, and so they were very traumatized, and I'm like, I remember being that traumatized. But it was really great. We talked a lot about privacy laws, Chapter 43, building connections. It was a really profound experience, so...
Did you get your boots?
They didn't give me any boots, but they gave me lots of links to click on to learn more.
Whoa.
So,
I can't believe it's going to be a year already.
Yeah,
I know.
That's amazing.
Unbelievable.
I know.
How fast
Back in the
time
day,
goes.
little Brittany was presenting and interviewing. But now I'm old and wearied, and
That's where all my gray hair is.
probably. We have some employee anniversaries. Elka will have been here 6 years.
6 years for her. And Samantha, they were here at the same time.
Yeah, they came right at around the same time. Heather, our children's assistant, which I didn't put children's assistant, but she's a children's assistant, 4 years. And Carrie will celebrate her 1 year anniversary coming up. So very exciting and happy for them. Our monthly statistics on packet page 15. Do a quick look. We were up in checkouts. We were up in ebook checkouts. Up in self-service transactions. Up in library visits. A little down in reference visits. And actually more than a little down in meeting room uses for August. I guess everyone was out vacationing and not using the meeting room. So.
I want to ask you on references, or reference transactions, 'cause, you know, as we talked about, and we saw it in here.
Oh, yeah.
Are you collating that information differently than Pete did, or are you using the same standards, or, because, I mean, people come up and ask you any number of questions.
Sure.
And what is a reference transaction
Yeah.
and what isn't? And I think I've asked that question before, but
No,
bear with me.
It's a very good question, and it is a question that I think a lot of libraries struggle with. We are, I'm using the same coding that my predecessor used, and it's actually coding based on the DPI's definition.
Okay.
So it's not something that I'm actually...
Standard.
Right, yeah, I can't deviate from it because it's a number we have to report on our state annual report. No, I personally think that the definition the DPI has is a bit restrictive. Or, let me put it to you this way, I don't think it's indicative of truly what that desk does. And so very soon I'm going to be trying to institute a better tracking system. I can't change what the DPI defines because that's just what it has to be. But if you look at these numbers, I would say that this number is probably, gosh, I'm going to throw it out there even though it may seem aggressive. I would say that that number is maybe about half of of actual questions we answer in a given month. Because other questions like, where are the bathrooms? I have a computer question. Can you tell me our tax?
The tax form.
Exactly.
The day I was there.
Right. So you look at this number, and it actually doesn't show how busy we are because these are truly just. And I can bring the definition from DPI of what a reference question is, but truly, it's very much a research-based type question. And if you're having to use resources in order to pull it up, your own knowledge and expertise on technology or the building, and the city and things like that it's not taking it into account. So I really want to start tracking just what the desk fully does, not just.
Well, I think that's what a library has always been, is the reference desk. And if
Right.
we're underselling our reference capabilities, I just think that that's an important
I completely
additional
agree.
thing to show library viability.
I completely agree with you. That's a great question.
And I don't know if it's a separate category, like if you have the DPI standard reference
Right.
transactions,
Yep.
and then another one maybe underneath that, because again, I'm looking to fill up this page, as you know.
Yes, yeah,
That maybe that might not be a bad strategy, but then let us know, of course, what that
Absolutely.
includes.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. Yeah, that number's
I don't know
not.
if it was the ebook checkouts or self-service transactions, the one that was growing by leaps and bounds for a few years. I can't remember which one because now the numbers are starting to even themselves out.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think it was the self-service transactions.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it looks like they're starting to, because there's going to come a time where you're not going to be better in a year. I mean, isn't that a fair statement?
And and that, to me, that statistic is not, it's not very similar to the other statistics. Like, checkouts indicate that patrons are using our books. Like, visits mean that people are coming to the library. Reference transactions means people are asking us questions. To me, self-service is, I'm not quite sure what the history was on tracking this. I'm sure they were interested in figuring out, like, how many people renew online or use the self-check versus, work with a staff member to do that. But to me, that number, if it increases or decreases, I mean, they're either getting help using the
One way or
online or they're getting help from a staff member. So
Or what, it might have been ebook checkouts. It was one of those two. I just don't remember without looking at past packets. But one of them was. But it looks like something's evening out here. They're getting closer together because there's going to be a time. I said, well, one of them is you're not going to be able to surpass your statistics.
right, and and maybe some statistics are relevant to track at the time when you're trying to assess the importance of like a self-check station or whether we need 2 self-check stations. But eventually it
But
may
it's not,
come.
and
it's not as
Yeah.
helpful anymore, so maybe it's not something that we need to report on. And that is my report.
All right. Any additional questions for Brittany on her report? All right, thank you, Brittany. Unfinished business, not seeing any this evening. So let's move into new business. Several items here on the agenda. Let's start with item number 1. Review and possible updates to Library Board of Trustees bylaws, Article 5, dealing with committees. Brittany.
All right, so this is one that, to give a little bit of background, we need to nominate, which will be action item 2, somebody to the Strategic Planning Committee, the vacancy that was set up when Terry resigned his position. And so we do need to nominate someone new. And so I put that on there, and then I was like, I'm just going to check the trustee bylaws and, see what it says about committees, see if I'm missing anything. And I found something interesting, and I'm curious if you all have any historical perspective on this, or if it's just something that got dated. And so I do think it's important for us to look through the entire set of bylaws, section by section at some point, but today we have to just stick to Article 5. We're going to keep that really tight, so we're not looking at anything else. One, that's because that's what the agenda says, so we can't deviate from that, but also I want it to be very focused so that we can then move on to action item 2. So basically when I was looking at Article 5, which is on page, or packet page 18, I noticed section 1 said standing committees. Generally, there are no standing committees of the board. And to me, it seems like the Personnel Committee and the Strategic Planning Committee are standing committees. And so if the board wishes to continue to have those committees, then I think we need to update the bylaws to indicate that, unless I'm misunderstanding the definition of a standing committee. But if you look at this Article 5 section, there's actually nothing here that lists a personnel committee or a strategic planning committee. So, if anyone knows any background on this.
Well, they single out the nominating committee as separate, so
They do.
That's to me a standing committee because they meet every year. So
Right.
and it just to me the first section is written so generically that I don't know if it necessarily matters because it's saying generally there are no standing committees, but in our case we have them.
Oh,
so
I see what you're
that's
saying.
another way of looking at
Okay.
it. Also, so you mean you wouldn't have to do something, but if you want to be more clear, then you could change it.
And I'm actually comfortable either way. I was curious how you all read this, and if that's what we're comfortable with, and that's how we read it, I'm absolutely fine with that. I'm just thinking, like, from an outsider's perspective. So when Tracy, if she were to look at this, and we weren't around, and she were to say, "Oh, Article 5, I wonder what committees are on the library board."
And what, yes.
She wouldn't actually know that the library board has a strategic planning committee and personnel committee because it's not listed.
Well, that
in
would
the-
be the other option is to just take out section 1 or change it. And
Generally, and it's funny that I'm using that term because it's generally, generally you don't comment about this. The only comments that you normally make about the section is about that section. So this is almost like a subjective, like, hey, generally there's no.
Right.
So normally that doesn't live in a bylaw,
Good.
like a comment like that, but I don't know, maybe somebody wanted to add that in
Yeah,
there or not,
it's
I
kind of
don't
an
know.
interesting
Yeah.
comment.
Usually
I mean,
you
Yeah.
describe what it is a standing committee is.
I see. So you wouldn't even
Usually you
list.
give a definition
Okay.
of what.
Yeah, that would work
So-
too.
I don't know why someone put in,
Yeah. I
generally there's no.
agree with Gail's initial assessment. I don't think there's any
I don't think you want to
major
eliminate
consequences by leaving it as is. The strategic planning committee and personnel committee are different from the nominating committee in the sense that, well, we always know there's going to be a nominating committee, and it's always going to meet once a year. Technically, I guess personnel would meet once a year too, though, at the very least for the director's
And
review.
the strategic plan meets more than once a year.
Right.
So are these,
Yeah.
but these wouldn't be considered ad hoc committees, because they do meet regularly and every year, it seems.
That's why, to Tracy's point, I just wonder why it's even in there. I mean, that's because it's
Yeah.
kind of saying nothing. I mean, why
Like,
even bring
in
it
our
up, I
bylaws
guess.
that because I'm also on my alumni board.
Hey.
You know what the heck. We will have standing committees and then we'll list out what those committees are, but we
Right.
don't, I don't know, we don't normally have a comment
Yeah,
like
just,
that.
what's the
Yeah,
purpose of it?
it's- But there's a drawback of listing them,
Sure.
is if they go away or if you don't
Yeah.
have them, then it's like, oh, aren't we supposed to have them? Because they're in the
Sure.
bylaws. So so usually you say standing committees, these committees are, in charge of whatever. You would just, a definition is given of what a standing committee could be.
Sure, like
And
the
then-
board has the power to
Yeah.
appoint a subset of library board members to a committee that can meet to discuss.
And you could say
Special-
IE, personnel,
Sure.
or,
Strategic
or
plan.
strategic plan. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can give examples,
Okay.
but I don't know. if I
Generally,
would-
there is no requirement of standing committees on the board. However, strategic plan, blah, and you could do it that way too. And that, so you're saying there doesn't have to be a requirement for a standing committee, but, blah.
But this is
But
traditionally what we've been doing the last,
Having it listed
Several
is
years.
telling you that you can have it. So
Yes.
that's why,
But we haven't,
right.
so that's,
How about this? Standing committees can be appointed based on the need of the library and at the behest of the board. Period.
yeah.
I mean, did they put that line in there to say, what if we don't have them?
It
We could have them?
It almost seems like a defensive maneuver. Like, in
Yeah.
case someone asks, generally we don't have them, so don't ask.
Yeah.
It's
Right,
an
it's
odd.
kind of a not, yeah.
So we don't need to explain them.
No.
So,
it depends on when this was written too, and if it's just been brought forward all these
Sure.
years, because,
Well,
we
we haven't
really
paid
made an
attention.
effort at strategic planning,
Mhm.
and, so this might be just an old statement too.
Well, and when you change bylaws, according to Robert's rules, you have to post that change,
sure.
then amend it, then approve it. So it's
Yeah.
like a 3-part thing too.
And luckily, it's not an urgency.
Right.
It's not going to change what we do. But if what I'm hoping we can take action on is, I'll suggest a change, and then at the next meeting we can post that change, and then vote on it.
Is this something you have to run by the attorney then too?
Oh, I don't think so. So
Yeah, I don't think so.
it's
I'm
it's
not-
not really a statute thing, and it's not illegal. You are all the governing board of the library, and so you can adjust the bylaws. So I'm going to throw this line out here, and then you tell me to edit as needed. So standing committee, section 1 period. Standing committees period. Standing committees can be appointed based on the need of the library and at the behest of the board. Period. Doesn't provide any constraints, restrictions, how often they meet. It's just this is what the board can do when they need to.
I like it.
Works
Makes
on-
sense.
I
to
guess
me.
it just begs the question, then why do they mention nominating committee? Because, that's a standard committee, so you're naming one, but then not naming the other, so
Yeah.
should 2 come out, and then we just jump up to ad hoc committees and just,
Technically, yes.
yeah.
Because Article 3, Section
Would you consider the nominating committee a standing committee?
Because then you start to enumerate them.
Yeah.
That's
Right,
where,
right.
so to me, then I would take out section 2 or enumerate the committees.
I don't know what article it is.
But then, as Tracy points out, then you're stuck with what you've enumerated. If you decide to add another committee, then you gotta amend the bylaws.
I think and I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but I think they wanted to, there's special rules according to this bylaws for what the nominating committee's makeup is. So in this case, it says in Article 3, Section 2, the nominating committee shall be appointed by the president and shall present a slate of officers at the annual meeting. Additional nominations may be made from the floor at that time. And I suppose the value of that level of detail is if we were all gone, right? If I became a millionaire and went to Hawaii, and you all also became millionaires and left for parts unknown, and there was a completely brand new board, a completely brand new director, all they would have to go on is this paper for how the library board runs. And so in the case of the definition of the nominating committee, it would be helpful for them because it actually says, it gives them guidance. Now, whether or not we should give guidance, I think that's what they were trying to do there. I'm not saying that's good or bad, I'm just saying that.
I kind of piggybacking off of what you're saying here, Brittany, or trying to say, I think the nominating committee, its scope and its kind of general framework seems to be solid, set in stone, and timeless. So that's why it's kind of codified in this document in Article 3, Section 2. Whereas any other committee, serves at the behest of the board. We can, I guess, at least theoretically change the scope at any time. We can. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So the nominating committee,
technically, after you finish the strategic plan, you could disband the committee.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So a nominating committee is always going to have a function that's set in stone. Hey, these are key rules. This is what guides us. So we need to have this in this document. But anything else is, up for debate, up for change, maybe at any time.
And in theory,
that's what I get out of it.
Yeah, and in theory, Section 2 doesn't say that the nominating committee is not a standing committee. It's
Right.
just saying, I need to give you a little bit more information about this particular one.
If you read the language in ad hoc committees technically could explain strategic plan and personnel.
Right, I was gonna say that also,
Yeah,
yeah.
so you could put, even though they've been ongoing for a while, they technically are to deal with special projects. Personnel perhaps less so, but I could see strategic plan fitting in there because of the plan itself.
That's true.
So, is personnel more of a standing committee than it is not? Or does that belong in ad hoc? Because then we could just leave standing exactly as you read it. Leave nominating committee the way it is.
I think the benefit of that, of adjusting that phrase to what I said, or some version of it, it's not like it has to be that, is that it really doesn't take away anything, but it allows for what we're already doing.
Gives you flexibility.
So it doesn't seem to hinder the board in any way. But it does sort of give more description as to what may be happening. So.
Do you need a vote from us?
No, she just has to she's suggesting that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that would be
well,
for next month then.
Yeah, I guess technically what I need an action on is to approve the proposed change, and then with a vote at the next meeting. So.
Yeah, so this is considered like a first reading. Well, do we need a motion tonight? We're just reading.
I think we
Came up with the language.
Right.
We'll vote
Yeah.
at the next meeting, right?
Right.
One vote.
Well,
So-
because you're supposed to give the public a specific time to
To comment
respond,
on it.
on it.
But I
Not
think
that
that
they're-
the
Yeah.
issue
And we
is
know that they're just gonna
maybe
be
what you
calling
might want to do
from left and right to put in their 2 cents worth on that.
They might be.
is you can poll the board, just to make sure that everybody agrees with that statement, I suppose. You can do that, because that's really all the further we need to go.
Yeah, you could ask for an informal straw poll.
I don't
Right
think
now-
anybody's in major disagreement, so.
Yeah, either by consensus or a show of hands, and it doesn't carry any official weight.
Yeah.
All in consensus
Yeah,
at
I
this
think
point?
we're all fine.
Yep.
All right.
All right. So then,
Very good.
all right.
Thank you. So item number 2 then, tying into this discussion, nomination for Library Board Strategic Planning Committee vacancy.
All right, so the Strategic Planning Committee is made up of 3 members, Gail, who's the chair of the committee, Robin, who's a member, and then we need to fill the vacancy, that 3rd position. And something that I just want to throw out there as we fill that vacancy, or as you vote to fill the vacancy, is that the Strategic Planning Committee will have more work to do than it has than last year, because next year is a strategic planning year. So we will be meeting maybe a little bit more frequently just to discuss sort of the planning and the timeline of that. But then, as a reminder from Article 5, everything then does come back to the full board for a vote. So the Strategic Planning Committee is an advisory committee, but they are of great benefit, to me and to the library staff as we make some initial discussions to make it efficient so that when it gets to the library board, it can be decisive. So I just wanted to mention that, and that it's because it's a small group. We really want people who feel comfortable, feel engaged, and really feel like they want to ask questions and seek answers, that type of thing. So that's all I have to say about that.
Are you looking to do? We had an extended process for the new people, inviting people to brainstorm, community members, all that. Are you looking to do that kind of thing again this year and hire Wills to do it again, or are we just going to kind of?
In 2018, no.
Mm-hmm.
All of the data collection that I'd like to do for the strategic planning will take place in 2019.
Okay.
I want to get some initial feedback about what types of things we want to do in 2018, so that in 2019 we can hit the ground running and really, start right away. But in 2019, I do hope to engage focus groups. At the time, although I'm certainly welcoming the board's opinion on this, at the time I wasn't planning on engaging Wills. I think that when you engaged them last, it looks like they helped you build a really nice template of the strategic plan. And unless the board is concerned about its structure, my plan was to continue to use that structure, but obviously gather data in a variety of ways and find the new information to take us through the next 3 years.
Because then we got to look at budgeting for that.
Exactly,
So,
and that was not my plan.
Yeah. Okay. And as chair, I think another challenge we're facing, and I'll use a small c on that, is just funding sources. Because as things change and as funding gets moved around and whatever, we have to. This is again my personal opinion. Just try and start looking for additional funding sources, working more with the Friends and all that as well. So it's not just creation of the report, it's also some strategic things in that regard, because it's probably going to be a line item, but then we do a marketing plan, we do all different kinds of things that support those line items. So just so I'm clear about that part of the work as well.
So basically, what we need to do is, because it's a vacancy midterm, we just need to have someone be nominated to serve on the committee, and then have the library board vote on that. So,
All right. Shall we open the floor to intense discussion and debate the nominations for this
Everyone is
exciting
clamoring.
opportunity?
Yeah, well, is anybody, I guess the first question is anybody interested? Who's on who, I know it's you and me on the personnel committee.
and Tony.
Yeah.
Okay, got it, okay.
And then Gail and Robin are already on strategic.
Yep, okay.
And Jordan is the treasurer. I'm just mentioning, not that everyone has to do one thing, but
We're going to sit here all night until someone takes
All
this.
right. Next year will not be a good year for me as far as doing any extra things.
sure.
So,
Does it have to be somebody on the board, or can you do like the city does and reach out to other people in the community?
That's a really good question. I don't know what our restrictions are, or if they're self-imposed. We've always had internal board members. I don't know.
Well,
I don't think we've
I
ever.
mean, the bylaws say that you can have members from outside the community, but I don't know if
Because in our bylaws, it even says that no one can sit on a committee until they've been on
because they're committees of the board. So at
for
least
some
the way
time,
I-
because you don't really know
Right.
how things are going. But I don't know if I've read I didn't read that in here.
I think what we've discovered about the Article 5 about committees is that it's pretty light on details.
It is.
Personally, my recommendation would be that We are going to be very much engaging all the communities. We're going to be talking to council. We're going to be talking to, the city. We're going to be talking to businesses. We're going to be talking to schools, all that stuff. My recommendation would be to have 3 members of the board on the committee, just so that it's a proper subset of the board, so that the board feels properly represented in that subset. And so then when we come to the full board, there were 3 people who were part of those discussions. In theory, according to this, you could leave it at 2. If Robin and Gail decided that it was Gail, Robin, and myself, that we could definitely do that, because actually the bylaws don't dictate that it has to be.
And leave it open if people are free, they can show up as well.
I mean, because I am more than willing to come forward and tell you what's going on with the school, because I have the connection to the school district and other community type thing. I'm more than, I just don't know if I want to commit, being that I'm just so new to the board as it is right now. And,
Yeah.
I mean, but I'm willing to, I would like to help, but I don't know if I want to say that I would be on it full time. Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. And we haven't talked to Tony yet, and she is on the personnel committee, but also the personnel committee meets once, maybe twice. So
As long as you're staying. As long as you are staying. Otherwise, we met a lot once he gave his notice.
I have to tell you that unless I'm asked to leave,
Okay, all right.
Right now, I'm
then
feeling
we
pretty.
don't have to meet. Not like last year.
Well, I'll toss this monkey wrench into the discussion. Assuming we can bring in potentially an outsider, keep in mind that these committees only have advisory kind of powers, right? These committees can only make recommendations to the full board. So, bringing in an outsider, that's kind of the board's protection, I guess, from, an outsider coming in with ideas that are, maybe far-fetched, unreasonable. So we have some leverage and protection in that way. How about maybe if we can bring in someone, maybe someone from the Friends group, potentially. I'm just tossing this out there. I don't know if...
I was thinking the chamber too.
Or the chamber?
Yeah.
Start with maybe
Is
key
there
organizations in
A
town.
person that visits this library often, that you would be like, this is a core individual that really, because we're talking strategic plan of the library, like what would you want for the library? And it would be kind of nice to get customer feedback.
Like a parent or family that really
Is engaged.
is known for visiting
Yes.
here.
And
Well, we know.
I do have a list of names of engaged people. I've actually been collecting them as people that I could potentially access when I have really specific questions. So I do have that group of names. What do you think about this? Leaving the strategic planning committee at 2, Gail and Robin, and then we could ask a friend of the library to be, what did they call it? May include as an outside expert. Not making them an official committee member, but inviting them to all the committee meetings as an outside expert, and just making that person ask if they can attend as they can, whether it's a Friends member or one of the people that I've been.
Yeah, it could be
cultivating.
anybody. I'm just tossing that idea out there. But yeah, this is a really good question and a really good scenario that we bring up, because I guess historically we've never.
It keeps the board from burning out.
Yeah.
And it keeps new ideas coming in, fresh
Yeah.
ideas.
Well, because I would really want to tap into the people that use it. Instead of asking someone who never frequents the library, what do you think
Yeah.
our strategic plan should be? That just doesn't seem appropriate.
Well, and the reason actually why I've been collecting these names is because I planned on using them as focus group
Well, that's what I was
Yeah,
saying.
it's a great idea.
Want to go crazy here? You could have friends of the library. You could have a chamber person. You could have, all of the different things that go to our goals, and they can come as they please or whatever. So I don't want to call it a sub-advisory board, because then you're getting too, But at least you could have some people who could rotate, I guess. And it's also, Robin, are you okay with this structure?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
And I mean, I
think
would like to, I'm the same way, where it's like, I would like to say, but I just hate to say I'm gonna do it, and then the rest of my world that's hanging on by a thread right now crumbles. And then I'm not able to,
And not be able to do this justice. to the
correct,
role.
Well,
correct.
then it just causes frustration for you for
Correct.
putting in the time, and I don't want that. I don't want
Right.
it.
Well,
It's
and
also nice to have like a good representation of like, you know, I never use the teen area, so I have nothing really to say about it because I'm not in that area right now. Just, you know, to have a different view. I'm here a lot, but I
Yeah.
never see the teen area. I'll never use it until my kids use it. So
something that I just want to maybe mention so that we keep in mind that the actual point of 2019 and the strategic planning process is to do all that, is to talk to the chamber, is to talk to the teens, is to talk to the businesses, is to, you know, to talk to all those people. The purpose of the strategic planning committee is to set up the framework of how we gather that data. So I don't think we necessarily need to have a really large strategic planning committee with a bunch of different people. Really, at least my perception of what those meetings are is to say, okay, who do we need to? How many focus groups should we have? What are what's our network and stakeholders that we want to communicate with? When do we want to, you know, do this? You know, can Brittany run a focus group once in the evening, once on, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I don't think we necessarily need to have a diverse group on the strategic planning committee.
Okay.
What we need is the strategic planning committee, you know, directed by the board to say, like, this is how we go and get feedback from everyone.
And I concur with that with one caveat, which to think about, is that I think it's one thing to meet with somebody for an hour in a focus group. I think it's another thing for people to serve on a committee and have ownership of the report.
That's very true.
Okay, so, you know, I think they're two very different things. So if I ask your opinion for an hour, it's very different than if you come to meetings and you help write the report and all of those kinds of things. So I agree with you, but I also see another possibility of having people more active on the committee itself.
How often will the committee have to meet?
Well, actually, the goal, I think, of the October committee or the October meeting that I want to have is to actually just sort of say, like, okay, what does this framework look like? Do we want to start in January and be done in May so that the report can be written?
Is it like once a month, or is it more than once a
Not
month?
that much.
It's not that much, and is
I
it
do all the
evening
editing,
hours?
so you're not, you know, I'm
And
here
it's-
hours
is it more
doing the
evening
editing.
hours?
So it's just short meetings, it's really not that.
See, now
Were
Unless
they
she plans
were
to
they
do it
mostly
differently.
at evening hours?
No,
it's all over the place.
they were during the day, at least
Like in the
because it
past.
was Terry's schedule and Robin's.
I mean, I have to just be flexible. Whatever, it's all over. So I can try to make it.
Okay, well, put me down then. I'll do my best. If things go, then I may have to go, but right now I can say that I can do it.
Are you saying that during the day is the best for you?
Really, it doesn't, probably evening's better, but I can do during the day as long as I have enough notice. My job is like a crazy job. I don't have a set schedule.
Yeah.
I go in when I have to go in.
Yeah.
So, which makes it hard for doing things, but I can maneuver around it.
Yeah. That's not my husband's schedule.
Yeah, so I can maneuver.
Yeah, a lot of the work too is already done. They know what they need and what
Yeah,
they want.
sure.
So as far as the report itself, I mean, there's some work in the editing. But then, you know, I think some of the philosophical and strategic questions are how are we going to get there?
Sure.
Because of some of the new things that have come up funding wise and all of those kinds of things. So, you know, there's, but the report itself is, we get a lot of the information
Okay.
from them already.
All right.
So,
Put me down.
All right. Are we,
Thoughts?
instead of officially nominating you and creating or filling this third seat, do we intend to just have Gail and Robin kind of be the official committee and you're available kind of
You can put me in
as
as a
needed
third.
or whenever you're
You can put me in
available?
as a third,
As a third
member of the
member.
committee. You can do
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, you can do that.
So formally nominate you tonight?
Yep, absolutely.
Is there anyone else interested in this seat? Does anyone really want to step up and violently contest Camille here? Okay, well let's.
I have a question though. If
Yeah.
you do want to attend the meeting and you're not on the committee, can you do that?
It's a public meeting, so,
Okay.
I mean, and also you're a library board member, so I would imagine that even if it wasn't,
I think we disclaim on the meeting notice that
Yeah.
you could have a quorum present, so you're welcome, of course.
Mhm. All right. Well, at this time, let us close discussion here. I will look to entertain a motion to nominate Camille to the Strategic Planning Committee, please.
I second the motion.
Will you motion? Will you make the original motion? And then I need a
Is he
second.
suggesting it?
He's
So-
Oh, I
suggesting
see.
it,
Oh, okay. I nominate Camille as the third member of the Strategic Planning Committee.
All right, Barb, thank you. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Jordan, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? All right, all right, well,
Respectful of your time.
Camille,
Oh, I
thank you.
know. You're welcome.
Yeah.
It's just,
Appreciate that.
there's just, I don't know what's gonna happen, so. But you know what? Nobody knows what's gonna happen in life,
That's
so,
absolutely correct.
you know,
That's right.
so, it's all good.
It's all good. Well, thank you, Camille, and thank you, everybody, for the great discussion, and it sounds like we had some nice suggestions and ideas coming out of that, so. All right, well, discussion item number 3 under new business here. So a discussion on the 2017 Library Annual Report.
all right. Yes, indeed. You heard that year right, 2017. In a perfect world, had I not started in the midst of a renovation, this would have come out probably in February. But as matters were, I just finished the 2017 annual report, so I apologize. And my goal for the 2018 annual report is to get it out in February. So, but here we are. So obviously, if you look at the 2017 library board, you're going to see everyone that was there in 2017.
Brittany, do you have any credentials after your name at all, like certifications?
I
and things?
do, yeah.
You should probably add those
Oh, yeah.
to your.
It's on my email thing. I never
Okay.
thought to do that on the
You
annual
should make
report.
yourself look
Yeah.
real professional. So
Got it.
add those
I
on there
will.
next time.
I will.
Yeah. Give yourself some credit for your hard work.
I shall. Thank you. I think the thing of note that I wanted to point out is that our programs increased from 2016. I should have brought the 2016 report. I didn't think to do that, but our programs increased. The amount of attendees increased. Our summer reading participants were about the same as last year, but we didn't have interaction with the Parks and Rec department. They opted not to participate, and so that kept it flat as opposed to increasing.
I have it here if you want it.
Oh my gosh, there you are.
I don't know if you want
Thank you.
Sure.
it.
What I should have done, and I apologize for not doing this, is I made a nice little spreadsheet that actually compared 16 to 17 in all the categories. So, but one of the things I noticed, which I thought was really interesting, our checkouts went down by about 2,000, but that's almost exactly how many our audiobooks and ebooks increased. So basically, the statistics for checkouts were flat. Material usage was flat. It's just people switched platforms. And to me, I actually think that's really good. Libraries, a lot of them have plummeting circulation statistics, so I was very happy to see that. And our visitor count went up quite a bit from last year, so that's really exciting as well. And I give a lot of credit to Amanda on the back. I told her I really want to showcase the variety of community groups that we serve with our meeting rooms. And I told her, here are the numbers. Can you please show how to portray it in a nice visual way? And so she did. So it shows just the sheer variety of, the American Legion, the Log Cabin Quilters, the Caners, 4-H clubs, Boy Scouts, homeowners associations, all sorts of stuff. I'm so sad that we didn't crack 1,995. Maybe next year will be the year. But, that it just shows how important those meeting rooms are for our community. And so I thought that was a cool...
What's on the back of last year?
Last year, Pete had done a really
the map.
cool map of library card numbers, but I wanted to do something a little different. Maybe in a couple years I'll go back and do it again so we can compare and see how the maps change.
Do you print these on demand, or do you have a huge amount of them sitting?
Up until I just finished it about a week and a half ago, and so I've just been printing them out as I hand them out. I handed it out to council, and then I handed it out here to you. I did want to make a small stack. Obviously, they're rather expensive to print because they're so colorful.
Right.
But I will put a small stack out at the
just
desk.
noticed a small thing here. For some reason, Tina Schaefer's name is all in lowercase.
Oh my gosh,
And
you're
when
right.
you look at all of the other boards and whatever, you have
no.
everybody and...
Eileen, you didn't catch that.
I actually did, but I thought it was a little late because
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
They're already out.
Yeah.
They're out.
Oh
But
my
if
God.
you're printing
You
on
know-
demand, you might want to.
Yeah, no, thank you so
Change that?
much. It's the proof that no matter how many times you look at something,
Yeah,
no matter how many
exactly.
people look at something,
It happens.
And like, would it be important to put like what committee you were on too? Like personnel committee or strategic plan?
that might be fun.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Excellent. Thank you for noticing all that and for those recommendations. Luckily, I don't have any other printed out right now, so anything that I print from now on will be better.
I have two questions actually.
Yes.
So on the last page when it says like the amount and then what the friends gave to each program, is it just for those three things or is it just like the top three things they give for?
Yeah, just some examples. So when people say like, well, what programs were those?
And then my other question is, I hate to point this out, but the summer reading participants,
Mhm.
the number's not correct. Because according to your director's report,
Oh,
there's 1,238 just for children, and that's not including teens or adults.
Is that
Interesting.
for 2017?
Thank you.
Yeah.
see, and this is the problem, and
Yeah.
why I must apologize again that it's
Yeah.
so late. Because
Yeah.
yes, this is
Okay.
incredibly confusing, and I would have changed that number
Right,
because
no.
I keep confusing
Yeah,
myself.
thanks, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, this is all my fault for not
No.
getting this out at the appropriate time.
No, you got it done, so, and
Well,
I'm
then you're
glad I
gonna-
was wrong, because then you don't have to change it.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's yeah. I really appreciate you all looking this over, though. Certainly, anything I put out, I want to make
I
sure
just
that it's
looked at it
correct.
because I was interested to like see it broken down, like
Yeah.
overall,
Oh,
like how many
sure.
kids, how many adults, how many teens. That
You
was
know
just
what?
my-
I can put that in next year. That will be a good.
I was just
Well, and I think the overall importance of this is the library is viable.
Exactly.
There are so many people out there, even when I called for last year's community things, that say, don't come to the library. And I said, well, do you know we have this? Or, oh, no, I don't. Well, you hand this out or people see it
Yeah.
and say, oh my gosh, maybe I'm really missing something
Right.
here.
Yeah.
And it's colorful and
Yeah.
presented well. And
Yeah. It's
the library is not dead.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think people need to know that.
Well, and I
Amanda.
like what you said yesterday when we met, that it's almost like a community atmosphere and
Yeah.
a place
Community
for the
center,
community
yeah.
to be in. So, because we don't have something like that in Muskego, so it's kind of a good thing. Can I ask a question? What exactly is the role of the Friends of the Muskego Library? Like, what is their
Yeah.
mission or value or?
That's a great question. I don't have one of their brochures that has their formal mission statement, but basically it's
I
to
mean, you can paraphrase it.
sure it's to support the library in its programs and mission, including financially. And so a lot of what they do. Oh my gosh, Robin!
Oh,
Oh,
perfect.
you have a magic
Over there.
You're welcome, you're welcome.
So a lot of what they do is they fundraise for us to help, and a lot of what the money goes towards is programs. Although they did contribute quite a bit to the children's renovation, like $100,000.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
And they're 501c3, correct?
Correct, yes.
And
So
then-
we are allowed to apply for grants through them that maybe only 501(c)(3)s can do that government entities cannot.
Right.
So,
Right. Okay. Very cool. It's like a PTO of the library.
exactly. That's a good way to say it, yeah.
Thanks.
And if you could pass that back to Robin. Thank you for your magic folder.
Yeah.
What else can you pull out of there?
I actually just cleaned it up before I got here too.
So that's what you knew what you had in
Huh.
there.
I knew I had it. Yeah.
Your efforts were worth it.
Yeah, I don't know if I should keep it or not.
We
And I was actually
generate.
just thinking like, I don't remember 2017.
There's a reason why.
We generate about 18 grand in fines and fees.
Yeah, I know.
it
I
says.
noticed that. I was like,
What,
Yeah.
what are other like fees? I mean, what are some examples that I'm not
The
thinking of?
like copy
Copy.
machine,
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
meeting room fees.
yeah, how much does it cost? Somebody asked just yesterday. Asked me how much the room cost was, and I'm like, I just started. I don't know the
Yeah.
answer.
It's free for nonprofits
That's what I
and
figured.
community groups. And then for profits or for individual use, it is $25 an hour.
Okay.
So if you threw a birthday party, a baby shower, if you wanted to meet one-on-one with someone, but you weren't going to invite anyone else, the community weren't open to it, then
Right.
yeah.
It was on Facebook. I was like, I think it's free for nonprofit. I did quote that, so I
Nice.
was lucky
Yeah.
that I did that right.
And then there are some other rules if you're, like, want to sell something. There are certain things
Oh,
that
right.
are, can and cannot be done, but, you know, that's something that, of course, they come to me with.
Yeah, always ask me the questions. It's a delicate and convoluted policy, so I'm happy to define it for whoever needs it.
All right.
And she even bolded
Job
it.
well done.
Wow.
Yes.
Is there
This looks solid.
is the Muskego Library meeting rooms free?
Did she put that on the Muskego Facebook page?
No, it's
Oh,
just
okay.
on her Facebook page.
Okay.
And then, yeah, because I was the last one, I'm like, actually, some people do have to pay, but I think if it's local nonprofit, I don't think they do. So I was like,
That's fair.
so
Yeah, but if you want to give her, or just say, contact the library and they can.
she said, thanks all, I was able to look it up now, and yup, free for nonprofits.
Nice.
So
All right.
There you go.
Where's
So
that?
if you're on the Facebook page, just
Wonderful.
You should probably on Facebook you can just put in the search engine library and see
Sure.
what people are asking about.
Yeah.
Your,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You can and follow up.
Or you may not want to.
Yeah, true. That could go
People
both
complain
ways.
about everything.
Oh,
It could go both ways.
Oh my
But I've
gosh.
never seen anything complain about, oh my gosh.
No, yeah.
I'm just thinking about that main page.
I know,
And,
it never ceases to make me either go oy vey or laugh every day
there are
with
some
what's on there.
great things I learn,
Yes.
and there's value to the group.
Yes.
There's no doubt, but there are
Absolutely.
there are
But
some
some
funny-
of it, it's like,
some funny things going on too.
it's like,
Yeah, we at our last school board, it was brought up of a whole conversation. I was like, I didn't even know it was existed.
oh
Like,
my,
because I'm not on there 24/7, so I miss a lot of stuff. And I'm sitting at the school board, and this person comes up, and I'm like, I had no idea like all this was being said and
Yeah.
done, and yeah, it's amazing what social media does.
yeah.
It
It's
is.
amazing.
Well, if we think that Maine, the people in Maine talk a lot, I'm also on Bayview Town Hall.
Oh yeah.
They're
That's gotta be on
constant, they're
every
just
night.
constant, there's constant stuff going on that one. It's like, do you people not have a life?
I sometimes wonder.
Yeah.
Like, the amount of time it takes to respond to all of the responses. I'm like,
Yes.
I don't have time for that.
No, exactly.
Anyways.
All right. Well, any further questions, concerns, things to point out? Anything on the annual report here? All right.
Looks great.
Great work. Thank you.
Yes, thank
It's
you.
looking solid. So our last item under new business this evening, another discussion, the 2018 City of Muskego salary study.
All right. So I left the packet in my office, so I need to go run and get it. 1 second. Okay, so I followed the council's lead on this, in that I did not include this document in the packet because it had salary information, so I'm just handing it out in person. That's what they did for council as well. A little background, the City of Muskego did a salary study with potential implementation in fiscal year 2019. And I'm bringing it to you because ultimately the state statute, Chapter 43, says that if the funding does get approved by the council, the next step would be that the library board, because the library board controls the salaries and pay of the library staff, would have to approve this. So, without trying to confuse it too much, council would need to approve the funds. That's not something the library, like, they would say, this is the amount, and then the library board could confirm that, if that makes sense. So, I'm passing this around. One for our guest as well. All right, and so the salary study is done once every 5 years. That's in the it's a city requirement, and they looked at a variety of comparable municipalities to see where the entire city staff was, and are we competitive or not. Certainly, the goal of being competitive is that we don't lose staff to neighboring municipalities. We want to be able to properly fund our staff so that we can retain quality, energetic staff. So this first page is the proposed implementation. Just to summarize, they're recommending doing away with the STEP program and going to the regular range. And then they're all okay. So let's see. They compared to 13 communities. The library ended up being kind of far off in some positions from the averages of those 13 comparable communities. And so what you see on the second, on the back of that cover page, are the positions that the ones that are on the top tier. Those are the managerial and specialist scale currently. And if you look over to the far right, anything that is the recommended salary adjustment column makes recommendations for those positions in order to bring them up to the minimum of what the average recommendation was of the communities. And so there's a minimum column, and then there's an over 15% cap at 6% column. The column that is shaded is the number that finance recommends based on their parameters.
So that's an increase that they're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
In order to bring it up to the average and to make it competitive with the neighboring. And
I don't have my calculator here, but so 6.38% of the current annual wage? What's the...
They're saying that 6.38% is the percent market adjustment.
Over 15%.
Yeah.
But it's a cap at 6 and you're over 6, so I'm just wondering what that 6.83 is. So how much money does that mean?
It means, if you're looking at my position,
yeah.
If you look to the left where it says minimum,
right.
The number that's in there is the number
that
so
this is just an explanation of that number.
Correct.
I thought,
Yeah.
okay,
I'm sorry.
all right.
Yep.
Got it, okay.
So in some cases, the averages lead to some dramatic increases. And I think what sort of... Yeah, so anyway, that's what the numbers showed.
So the city is proposing then to up these to be somewhat equivalent to the other 12 communities?
Correct. And the council, the way I understood how things...
We want to make sure we're competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We looked at, our finance director looked at all the communities that were comparable to us that we could defined. I mean, in some cases, some of these communities are quite a bit larger than us.
Right.
But we still want to make sure we're competitive.
Sure.
So that's kind of where she brought all this together.
Okay.
And there were very, very few that were already above. But even those people, we obviously would never take anything away from them.
Right.
In some cases, there was one, I think, that was extremely above. And in that position, they're just going to be redefined.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's, just want to stay competitive.
I'll ask you, since Eileen is a guest, and maybe she can explain it. Where are we expected to find this money?
So
I was wondering the same thing.
Well, so the way things were left, and you can let me know if I misunderstood, is that the council voted to accept the information as they received, that something should be done and that these numbers made sense, but understanding that the operating budget still has to be discussed. So we discussed the capital budget on September 11th and then the Tuesday previous for DPW, but now they have to look at all the operating requests against how much money the city has and then see, do we actually have the money? Does the city have the money for these numbers or not?
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
But that's, I think what I'm asking, is this a city-funded portion, or are we going to be expected to take it out of?
I got the sense that it was a city-funded.
Okay.
City
So, because
funded.
otherwise we got to prepare for.
Yeah, it
Yes.
is for
So-
our budget.
Right. Yeah. No. I that.
This is where we move everything around and see where it lands.
Okay.
So
Sounds like a lot of fun.
I wanted to bring it before you. There's no action to be taken right now because
Okay.
these are just preliminary based on the initial findings of the study and the council's initial acceptance. So after the operating budget gets discussed, then the salary study they'll be able to tell how viable it is. It very well could be that they could go, well, we can't do this, but we can do half this year and half next year.
Okay.
Or can't do it at all, sorry everyone. Something like that. So what I wanted you to do was see this, because eventually I will be bringing potentially some version of this back to you.
Okay.
And so I just wanted you to have a background of it.
And may I just talk to Eileen directly?
Certainly,
Okay. When you see this kind of number, is that all, would that money have gone to capital projects, for an example? Or do you really operate the two very separately?
They're very separate.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there wasn't a cut in capital budgets because we had to do parity on the salary side? Okay.
Well, and I'm curious too that who came up with the fact that some of them are going with minimum, some are going with the mid-range, and some are going to, the one, for instance, I'm just gonna take one person was actually above what the minimum range was, so they put that person in the mid-range and then increased it by 14.75%, whereas the others, they did not do that.
It's based on where they are today.
She had 41 years of service.
Right.
If you look at the,
Okay, so
So there are
you're
other
gonna go up to the
variables,
next one.
yeah.
So it's variable, it's not just all minimum.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
and certainly as you look this over, if you have any other questions, please feel free to email me. We have time on this because it has to go through the month of October before, if anything gets approved, and then I'll still bring it back for further discussion.
Because
So
just looking at the one on the part-time library aide, that was the one that, when we made, you weren't here, but Pete made the changes, and we flipped over and went and did the part-time aide, because I see it's 0 years of service.
Yep.
But it looks like that person is going to be paid more than, I guess, what we expected when we made the change.
Sure.
So,
$5,000.
What I would ask is,
stuff.
Yeah.
this maybe seems obvious, but if you wouldn't mind, because it is salary information, just not,
Oh,
passing it around.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
And we actually, on the city end, we actually turn those back in.
I was going to say,
Oh,
do
do
you want
you?
them back instead?
Oh.
I mean, that's because I don't think we.
Well, if I'm really following the lead in terms of the privacy of this, so if you
Right.
turned it back in,
Right.
then
I mean, if you wanted to keep anything but the salaries.
actual.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it kind
But
of
technically,
looks like the way
isn't
it's.
this all public record?
Right.
Yes,
Well,
it is. Yes,
Okay,
it is.
you're right. If it's public information, it's not, you can keep it.
Right, because I mean, all the stuff that I get from
Because
the
it doesn't
board.
have
But the
to-
salary study probably isn't
Yeah.
public record, I don't know. I mean, I'm fine with giving it back to you, I have no
Yeah.
problem with that, you know.
I mean, I think technically if there was if there was a records request for it, I think it would be
For current-
provided.
Oh, yeah.
For current there is, but
Yeah.
not for what's in discussion.
That's
Oh,
what I'm saying,
sure.
the report
Oh,
probably is
yeah.
not public record, so, but the
And then-
salaries are public record, the current ones.
And the salary study is probably more like proprietary. It was the city
Right.
that put this data together. It's their unique conclusions and their analysis. We don't want to, unknowingly give other cities the advantage right now and
Right.
steal our data, perhaps.
What we
Although
could
they're
do.
asking for
be-
ours anyways.
Because technically, this is a closed session item too, I mean, couldn't it be?
Well, the council.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, the council.
Yeah, but I
did
mean,
go
you're
into
discussing
closed-
salary
When
information.
we get, yeah, and in some cases it will wind up in closed session when we get down to the nitty.
I handed mine back, so
Yeah, I'm
whatever
fine
everybody
with
wants
turning it
to.
back in.
I think if someone would like to study it further, please feel free to stop by my office, and there will be a copy for
Perfect.
you.
Because it's all speculation also at this
Right,
point.
exactly.
Sure.
That's the other
Mhm.
reason.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
That was all I have.
Well, thank you. All right. Well, communications and miscellaneous business is authorized by law. Anything else to add here?
Not from me.
Not
I
from
have
me.
actually have one.
Yeah.
I just ripped this out of the New Berlin program, rec program, and it just is a get to know your New Berlin Public Library. I thought it would
Cool.
be kind of cool to do something
Yeah.
with the Muskego one.
Hmm.
That is
for
really
work,
neat.
but it'd be great to put a picture with a face. 'Cause I
Yeah.
don't think we have that even on the website, like a picture of you,
Oh,
or
yeah.
like staff members.
Yeah, that's really
Mm.
cool.
And is it multiple
Sure.
weeks
You
or
can
just?
keep it.
Yeah, thank you.
Is what multiple weeks? No, so that's in the program book.
That they're
Right, that's what I say, but do they run it multiple weeks? That's because.
No, it would be
It's
like
just-
fall.
no, once a year.
Yeah, you know, like
Yeah.
how ours, this
The
is
rec
the
I know, I do Parks
Yeah.
and Rec classes,
Yeah.
but I'm saying, are they offering it for multiple weeks? That's what I was.
Are there like multiple
So we're not
sessions,
offering
right?
anything. It's just
It's
get
just
to
an
know your
info.
library.
Oh, I thought
Yeah.
that you were
It's an
suggesting that it
article.
be done like as a class, that people could come and.
Yeah, or
No,
like a
no,
tour,
no,
like a
she's just
listening
saying
session
that's
or
in their
something.
New Berlin
Bio
Park
about
and Rec
each-
book.
Person and working in the library.
Do we think people would pay money to meet me?
No, I'm not saying they pay money. I'm just saying that, yeah, that you would.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, I assume
I'm not that
Only
cool.
one way to
I'm not that cool,
And can
unfortunately.
the library post anything in the Park and Rec book?
It's really funny you mentioned that because I just got the Park and Rec guide for Muskego the other day, and I was flipping through it, and then one of the staff members asked about it, and so that's a discussion I was going to talk to the recreation manager about. I certainly don't want to step on her toes, and I know space is at a premium, so I was planning on meeting with her anyway and just sort of talking about, because she obviously interacts and provides cultural and educational opportunities as well, so I think I'm sure she has interesting stories to share, so I was going to sort of engage with her and see what I could find out. So.
There's also something you might want to consider. There's a publication that comes out that's 50% school board and 50% city.
Oh,
that
we're
you
in that.
could- Okay.
Yeah, but thank you. Yes, that is important to get in on. But if you ever think of anything else, my goal is to always.
So what it's a featurette, really.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
That's what
Yeah.
I thought they were off in the Park and
Yeah.
Rec class on getting to know your library. That's what I thought it was. So-
That would probably be something that they would put in the program, though. You
That's
know,
true. Yeah.
Like
But
just
it
tour
would
the
be-
library or.
Be good to encourage or highlight or get people interested in the library to have something like this in that part.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'd
Yeah.
love to take that. Thank you for finding
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. All right, anything else? At this time, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment, please.
Motion to adjourn.
All right.
I will second.
Neil seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right,
I neglected-
6:25. Thank you.
I neglected to ask you what wording of places.